Hey guys, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. It's Tuesday again, and I'm back with another live for you guys. And I'm gonna wait for some people to chime in, um, but I'm not gonna wait too long, right? Because that's just not gonna happen. So, regardless of who comes in at the moment, for you guys on the replay, I appreciate you as well. Those of you who are gonna watch it in the near future, later on tonight. We're going to talk about politics for a second, but I want to give a disclaimer. I am not going to get into any kind of political debate. I'm just looking at the broader landscape of what's happening out there in the world as it pertains to, in this case, the trades, labor, and all that good stuff. Trying to keep it, keep it with congruent with the theme of this channel. Okay. Um, so yeah, we're going to talk about that. What's happening out there in the world of politics? As we all know, that's a hot topic today. The elections are coming up. We got two contenders battling it out. I'm not going to ask you guys who you're going for. That's your business. But we will look at some of the issues on the table as far as the trades go and labor, right? The working class, the working man, the working woman, the blue collar types, that pretty much are the backbone for this country to run, right? So let's dive into it. As I've said before on many of my lives, I brought up the issue of a labor shortage in America, at least in the US, right? Well, there's a global shortage as well, but I'm going to focus on the US mainly, right? So there's about a 70% labor shortage in the US, and all that means is that 70% of the employers are understaffed, right? They can't find suitable employees to fill their job vacancies. That's all that means, okay? And yeah, so but as far as the skilled tradesman shortage, that's still a big issue. And you may think it's just separated from everything else. That's just a separate issue. You don't have to worry about it. But a skilled trades shortage does affect the economy. It does affect you, even though you don't even know it, right? It affects the productivity of the nation or whatever nation that is. We're talking about the U.S. in particular. And when there's a lack of productivity, what does that mean? You're not really producing anything. You're not making anything. Um, and you become a nation of consumers, and that's not good. That's not good. And that just makes way for all the vultures to come in and capitalize off of you until eventually there's nothing but a carcass left, the carcass of a nation, economically speaking, and you're trying to dig yourself out of the rubble, like in the Mad Max movies. I'm getting a little bit dramatic here, but that's, you know, um, hey, civilizations have risen and have fallen all throughout time, and this is no different. Just because you think you're alive and you're living in a prosperous nation, if you're that short-sighted to see that, yes, it is prosperous, but um, it's not immune to these things. If it's not, if certain issues aren't addressed, it will wither away just like any other civilization has, right, in the past, for various reasons. So yes, there is a skilled trades labor shortage, like I said, I've spoken of many times on my lives. And why is that? Well, one of the reasons there's a skilled trades shortage is that the existing tradesmen that are out there, they're aging out. They're getting older and older, and nobody's there to replace them. Seems like nobody's interested in learning a skill anymore. All that stuff I talk about on this channel, nobody's really interested in it, at least enough to close that gap, right? Um, and that's what's happening. Let's look at some stats right here. It says that the average age of workers, skilled trades workers, was 36.8 years old in 1994. You want to guess what it is now? Well, in 2014, it was 40 years, or 40.8 years old. And then in 2020, it was 42.9. And yeah, so you see the progression there. Nobody's replacing these guys. And eventually they're going to have to retire because let's face it, the skilled trades, as you know, profitable as it can be for a good one, a good worker who's, you know, been in it for a while, it's a union worker and all that stuff. It takes a toll. It takes a toll on your body. It takes, you know, it's not something you're going to do for the rest of your life, right? You have a certain window in order to put your body through all of that work, and you know, before it starts to talk to you, and you know, you gotta get out of there, right? And they're not being replaced at all. So it says if the current aging rate continues in 2030, the average age of the skilled trades worker, they call it craft worker, will be greater than 46 years old. Yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, you're talking about guys in there, you know, like staying in the game in their 50s, 60s, probably, if they can, right? I'm not saying that all skilled trades are strenuous on the body, but when you think about it, if you're talking about being an electrician, being a carpenter, plumber, welder, yeah, that's gonna take a toll on your body, right? You're climbing into, you're doing all kinds, even HVAC guys, right? An HVAC guy, he has to go up in attics and ceilings and all that stuff to make his money. Yeah. So that's the other side of it, right? You know, your body is not going to be able to take all of that after you get to a certain point. And you may, even if you're fit enough to get to that point, or you're at that point, you're still fit enough, you may be just mentally burnt out on it, right? You don't want to do it anymore, right? And so unless these guys are replaced, right, then it's going to remain how it is right now. And there's a few other factors that you want to consider when you're talking about this shortage here. I'm going to get into the politics side in a minute, right? And that's not going to be too long. That's just based on what's happening today in the world of politics and how it's relating to what I'm talking about here. Number two, I talked about aging, right? Stigma. There's a stigma around the trades, right? There's always been that, right? Oh, you know, you're doing a dirty job, that kind of thing. That whole stigma around that. So there's a higher value placed on going to get a college degree or getting in debt, you know, for a college degree. And it causes a lot, and that societal pressure causes a lot of young people to not want to even consider a trade, right? Because they're gonna like, oh, you know, I'm graduating. My friends are going to law school, or, you know, they got their computer science degrees and this and that, and I'm going to, you know, get a career in what, you know, a skilled trade. So, you know, that's another reason why there's a shortage, right? You have that societal peer pressure on the minds of potential young folks who can really, you know, make a good living in the trades, right? And at the end of the day, you know, you need tradesmen. You need tradesmen to run this, you know, this economy, you know, to build the infrastructure and all that stuff. You need these guys, right? Lack of exposure in education. It says many high schools have reduced or eliminated vocational training programs, limiting exposure to trade skills. And I think that's by design. Why would you do that? In essence, you are turning your society, your nation, your city, whatever, into a consumer nation, right? Not a producer nation. And, you know, when you really think about it, they had to know this. You're pushing people into going to get a college degree, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I support going to get a college degree if it's useful, right? If you can look long term and say 4 years from now, or even maybe before I graduate, I have a job lined up in this particular field, right? So yeah, I would say go to college for that. But a lot of young folks are being pushed into just the idea, the concept, the idea of going to college just to say you went. And that's contributing to this problem right here that I'm talking about. All right, what else? Shifting economy. It says the U.S. economy has shifted from manufacturing to service-based. Fewer people have pursued trade skills. Yeah, but in my head, you don't just want to be a service-based economy, because once again, you know, it's yeah, okay, you can go get a service-based job, but you're not producing anything. It's only the producers that can last because they have the control, they have the power. They're producing the goods and services. They're producing the commodities, all right? Whether it's textiles, clothing, car parts, whatever, you know, you own the means of production, which is that's one of the best places to be as far as uh, economic stability and economic power. But like I said, people being pushed into that service-based jobs, thinking that you would eventually have a strong economy. The owners of the means of production, those nations, um, they're the ones that have the control. Okay, because without them, you have nothing to serve with. You have no product to serve. So increasing technology, advancements in technology have automated some trades jobs. Yeah, well, that's, you can't help that, right? That was coming down the pike. Automation. I've seen it myself. Even even in the world of trucking, which I was in the trucking world for a good while, and I've seen that happen. I've seen so I used to pick up loads from the ports, the ports on the West Coast here, containers, and I've seen those containers, those 40-foot containers, being lifted and driven around by robotic vehicles, right? And it was an amazing sight to see, and it was a testament to how automation is pretty much taken over. Well, it's not totally taken over, and you still need people, you still need human beings to program these machines and so forth. Uh, but yeah, these certain things were coming down the pike that you couldn't stop, and automation was one of them. Okay, insufficient training programs. There's a lack of accessible and affordable training programs for those interested in pursuing trade careers. Um, yeah, I haven't done a study on the amount of trade programs that existed now versus say maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago. Um, but I know they were in schools more, right? They were in schools more, and they're not. So that right there should tell you something. Okay, we covered that already. Immigration policies. I know that's another touchy subject there. But it said stricter immigration policies have reduced the number of skilled tradesmen coming from other countries to work in the U.S. Once again, that's another hot topic, another dicey, touchy subject in the world of politics today. A lot of people have a lot of different thoughts about that, and I'm sure you guys know about that already. So, economic downturns during recessions, the construction industry is often hit hard, leading to layoffs and fewer people entering trade careers. Yeah, well, that happens in all industries, right? In all industries. Physical demands. I spoke of this, right? Some trade careers are very physically demanding. Yeah, so that's not appealing as well. That's not appealing when you know that in 30, 40 years, you may be, not to mention the risk of injury, right? You're working on these job sites, and versus working in a cubicle, which I think can be just as damaging mentally. So there's really no escape, and there's the mental side of working in a cush office somewhere, in a cubicle somewhere, versus working outside as a tradesman. You have the risk of physical injury, body deteriorating, and in the cubicle you have the risk of, like, I don't know, being turned into a vegetable. And of course, I know there's a middle ground there. There's a middle ground. I myself, I like to be outdoors. I like to work with my head and my hands. I like the whole creative aspect of it. So I'm sure that people that love being in a cubicle, they love, you can be, your trade can be like a computer programmer or something, a network engineer or something like that. So, there's, I don't want to try to paint like a black and white picture here. There's a lot of gray areas. But generally speaking, that's how it goes with that. Okay, let's see. All right, so what's going on? We covered the trade shortage, skilled tradesman shortage, the labor shortage. We know that's happening. So what's happening in the world of politics? Well, the average tradesman is not going to be able to go to these to be the spokesperson for their trade, their particular trade, right? At, say, some of these conventions, like I think Democratic National Convention is coming up, or it happened already. That shows you where I don't even keep up on this stuff as much. No, the average electrician is not going to be. He's not going to be a spokesperson. You have unions. You have labor unions, okay, that represent these workers, and any party that's vying to get that top spot, Trump or Harris, whoever you're looking at, um, they're gonna have to cater to that worker, that blue collar worker, that middle America, whatever you want to call it, right? All right, and they're gonna have to really do some things to make people favor them, because if not, I mean, what's the point, right? And I'm not going to get into the whole rigged election. It doesn't matter who you vote for type of deal. I get that too, right? But at the end of the day, right, even if it's on for face value, that candidate has to show that they're going to do. They better have some good promises. That they, like, if they were in office before, I'll put it like that, and they have a trail of broken promises behind them, it doesn't look good now. It doesn't look good now, unless the motivation of that voting bloc cares more about their own interests than, or cares more about, not their own interests. Actually, they care less about their own interests than getting someone in office just based on the fact that they like them or they hate the other one. And that's pretty much what politics has come down to, I think. It's not necessarily about the issues. It's about how much do I hate the next guy. That's what I've noticed, right? I'm not saying everybody's like that. The smart people, they look at the issues, right? They look past personality. They look past all that other stuff. And they vote on the issues, right? And they vote on policy, and they're long-term thinkers, right? They're not emotional. And that's, I think that's what defines politics today in America. And you could say around the world as well. It's a very emotional sport. And I say sport, and I say sport because it is kind of like a sport, right? Spectator sport that you can get involved in with your vote if you think your vote counts. So, yeah, if you're vying to get the vote of the labor unions, what have you done? What have you done to show that you are for them, right? Because emotions aside, you still have to back up what you say, right? Because they're going to be the group of people that are not going to care about. They're not emotional. They're looking at what you've done. They're looking at your history, right? And that's just how America is. They look at your history, they look at your background, all that stuff, and they make their decisions from there. At least, like I said, the intelligent ones do that. Okay. So this administration, that's just the Harris administration, I think back in 2021, they passed something called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And it was a lot of money that they allocated to infrastructure, right? Which, of course, is construction, right? All that stuff, right? Mainly in the transportation areas, but it was increased to cover more areas. Let me see if I can pull it up and see what it covered. Let's see here. But I'm going to reiterate, guys. I'm not necessarily. You won't know who I'm going for, right? Or if I'm going for anybody. I'm just putting out what's out there now. Okay. Okay. Says that act I just mentioned, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. All right. It was also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL for short, right? So initially, when it was passed, it was for $715 billion, a $715 billion infrastructure package that included provisions related to federal highway aid, transit highway safety, motor carrier research, hazardous material, and rail programs of the Department of Transportation. Like I said, right? It's all transportation related stuff. Okay. And then they had some more negotiations, and they added more to that. They added more funding, and it included broadband access, expansion of that, internet access, clean water, and electric grid renewal, in addition to the transportation road stuff. Okay, so that upped it to about $1.2 trillion in spending. Right. So that was passed back in 2021. So, you know, I mean, if you're doing that, you're obviously you're thinking of the the blue collar guy or gal out there, right? The worker, right? Because you're not only are you trying to improve the infrastructure, you already know that's connected to people's jobs and how they feed their families, right? And so that's a plus for that side, right? What did the other side do? And once again, this is not tit for tat here. You can do the research for yourself. What did the other side do? From my understanding, the other side did court. They did court the labor unions, right? But I don't know if they fell short of what they promised. And like I said, if you have a trail of broken promises and you all talk, then you have to be able to, you have to know that's going to come back to bite you. You have to know that, especially if you're running for office again. You got to know that. So, okay. So let me check out, see if anybody's popping in on me. Let's see here. Lawrence's scroll saw works. Hey Lawrence, how you doing? Seems like all the USA is doing printing money. Yeah, I hear that. I wish I could have went to trade school, but lack knowledge kept me from going. Yeah. Well, it's never too late, Lawrence. I was in LD classes. What's LD classes, Lawrence? School us. What's LD classes? I'm kind of blanking out on that. Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, guys. If you want to, it's all about, like I said, the average guy, the carpenter, electrician, whatever, the average union worker is not going to be up there in these Republican conventions, Democratic conventions, speaking. No, it's going to be the heads of these unions. These guys who probably haven't touched a hammer in years, right? They're going to be the ones speaking for you. They're going to be the ones lobbying for their interests, right? And they all have an interest. Because if you look at the history of unions, it was very, very, very spotty. I'm talking about, if you're talking about corruption, one of the biggest, most corrupt organizations were the trade unions, and people knew it, right? People knew it. I mean, you can do the research on that. So you have the guys in the suits and ties at these conventions, at the state capitol, lobbying for the interests of their particular industry. And the average guy at the bottom, he's probably going to get crumbs, right? He's probably going to get the crumbs. But, if it's good, if he's getting a raise, he's getting his union benefits, he's happy. He's happy, right? So I'm not trying to paint the unions as they're saintly either. They have their own agendas, and they do what they have to do, right? That's just the way it is. But these guys, you have to, if you're running for office, you better have something good for these guys to go for you, to court you, to give you their endorsement, their vote, their money, and let's see here. Let's look at that a little more. So you have who's this guy right here? President of the Laborers International Union of North America. He addressed the Democratic National Convention in Chicago on the 19th. Guy by the name of Brent Booker. Okay. And it seems as if he's going that way. Right. But then you have other big heavyweights like the head of the Teamsters. By the way, the Teamsters used to be all about truckers and drivers, right? But did you know that the Teamsters are actually they've evolved to involve or take into their ranks white collar workers instead, which is very interesting to learn, right? Um, they've incorporated a lot of people in the professional sectors, the private sector, the public sector, in the Teamsters as well. So that increased their ranks and that increased their power, and that increased, I'm sure, it increased their bottom line as well. And I'm not, unions are necessary. You need somebody to fight for your rights as a worker, because back in the days there were no worker rights. Remember the child labor laws that had to be passed? Yeah, so all that stuff evolved from that. So, but power corrupts, right? Power corrupts, and even in these organizations that are there to protect your rights, human beings, what's the word? I don't want to say simple. The man is always subject, right? Man is always subject to listen to his selfish side, and you see that, right? You see that happening. But yeah, these unions, nonetheless, you still need them to protect your rights as a worker. And a smart politician would look at that and say, okay, how can I show them, the people that I represent, my constituents, how can I show them that I care? What am I doing for them other than words, right? And so that's who they're going to, as far as the state of the trades when it comes to politics, it's really in the hands of these people and what they're lobbying for, right? But at the end of the day, whatever they lobby for, if the workers don't like it, then you're looking at strikes. I've seen multiple strikes happen, just as just being a trucker out there going in and out of the ports. They didn't mess around. They had a strike every maybe 2 or 3 months, fighting over contract disputes with corporations and stuff like that. And it can last months, right? But what that does is, once again, the blue collar guys are the backbone of society. You say the truckers go on strike, the transportation workers go on strike. That will shut down the economy. That will shut down the economy, right? So that will shut down everything. So I don't care if you're wearing a suit and tie and you're up there on stage at these national conventions. That little guy that you're not even thinking about, and he's working his tail off just to feed his family. Enough of them say, I'm not taking this anymore because they're being mistreated. They're being taken advantage of. Those longshoremen, let them shut down. Let them not come to work and see what happens. Okay. Let's see what happens to your politics then. Okay. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. And so it doesn't matter how powerful you think you are, you're still dependent on, like, this is my head, this is my body, but if my feet can't work, then it's not going anywhere. All right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So you got these different labor unions vying for their own agendas to the different parties, and they're looking at the history of what was done for them in the past, and hopefully they're doing it for the industry, right? For the workers, right? They're not just. I'm sure there are some there for their own selfish interests, right? But that's just for them to not consider the the worker, right? The one who gets up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, to be on that site, that job site. At the end, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. I don't care who it is, Trump or Harris, right? They're shooting themselves in the foot. They're shooting their own political agendas, their goals, whatever aspiration they have, they're shooting that in the foot because it's dependent on how well they take care of their people, right? So, and that's how it is in life anyway. So, anyway, guys, that's my take on that politics. Okay, if you're disappointed that I didn't get into any, you know, well, I'm not gonna do that. I know it's more entertaining and stuff like that, but just want to give you a bird's eye view, guys. If you appreciate the channel, guys, I put out content on for the average Joe or Jane who's wanting to be more handy, right? Wanting to be more handy, wanting to be more independent, wanting the confidence to go out there and work on their own home, do it themselves. That's what this channel is all about, right? Who doesn't want to be intimidated by those tools. That's what this is about. And if you guys really want to support me, go ahead and go to Calibrate.com and join the email list. I put out some good content through the email list. Okay. Outside of this channel, got some great products as well for you at Calibrate.com. So if you really want to support what I'm doing out here, I've been on there for a while, and hopefully I've built some kind of relationship with you guys that you trust me enough to check out what I got outside of this channel. Okay. And because this is a third-party platform that I'm on, that I'm utilizing, that, but the goal is just to provide you with other things off of this platform too. So check it out, Calibrate.com. I really would appreciate it. Join the email list there. Matter of fact, let me see if I can put that. Let's see. Let me see if I can put that into the chat and then pin it. Let me see here. Oh, I know what it is. Hold on a second, guys. Give me a sec. Give me a second, okay? Let's see here. Put that in the chat. Copy. Okay. Perigo Life Notes, how you doing? Perigo says both political parties are tainted, so lobbying has become the new political murky pool. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. All right, guys. I just let me see if I could. Okay, how do you pin this? Forget it. Yeah, it has. And politics has always been a murky pool. Perigo Life Notes has always been that. Because you're talking about, at the end of the day, you're talking about power. You're talking about resources, allocation of resources. And because human beings haven't evolved past the point of, the ideal of caring for their fellow man just as much as they care for themselves, then it's always going to, until that happens, it's always going to be a game for power. It's going to be a game about power and resources, allocation of resources. Okay. And it can become a very dangerous game as well. We all know this. One case in point, there was that union leader back in the day, Jimmy Hoffa, and he was disappeared. Right, Jimmy Hoffa was disappeared. He was a very powerful union leader. He did a lot for the unions, and he got. Well, you guys can do the research on your own on that. So yeah, until that happens, it's all a big game of it's a game of power and resources, and who can get the most, and in between that is negotiations, this, that, and the other. And that's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So anyway, guys, for those of you in the replay who happens to hear this live later, leave a comment or so or something like that. Tell me what you think. Don't forget to go to Calibrate.com. Sign up for the email list, guys. Love to send you guys some great content as well that I don't send. I don't really have here on YouTube. So I'd like to build a relationship with you guys outside of this platform. So I appreciate you, and you guys have a good night. Take care.